Hey guys, I'm a doink, and lately I've been playing Counter-Strike 2, which released a little over a week ago. So far, I've been having a great time on it, but like many others, I recognize that the game isn't where it needs to be yet, and that's exactly what I want to talk about today. I feel that there are plenty of things CS2 is doing right, or even better than its predecessor, CSGO, but unfortunately there are parts where the game feels like it's missing the mark. Since we can't go back and play CSGO, I wanted to share my thoughts on the game, where it's at right now, and try to answer, is CS2 a worthy successor to CSGO? Jumping right in, I'd say that what we have so far is a really solid framework that is very much Counter-Strike at its core. Playing the game at release feels much closer to CSGO than it did during the limited test. Immediately, one of the first things that you notice is that the game looks much better than CSGO. Not just the textures, but things like water and smoke look and behave differently, and we can even see our own shadows now. To be honest, I was completely fine with CSGO's older visuals, but what we have now is so much better in my opinion, as I'm someone who really puts a lot of value into good-looking games. With that being said, performance is a little rougher on older systems, but that's just the downside of the new upgrade. Then we've got the movement, which is much closer to what we had in CSGO. It doesn't feel as weird as it did during the limited test, as I can actually change some of my hops now, and this goes for the shooting as well. While I do think that the hit registration itself feels better, there are times where the shooting just feels off. It isn't enough to make me dislike the game as I'm still playing it, it's just that there are times where I'm sitting here going, how did none of those shots hit? So I promise you I am not the best player in Counter-Strike by any means, so I recognize that some of it is just a skill issue, but there's something off about the shooting. And I'm not the only one that thinks that, as there has been a lot of back and forth in the community and people trying to figure out what exactly it is that is making the shooting feel so weird in Counter-Strike. Moving on to some of the newer systems though, my favorite so far is the Premier competitive mode. Having the ability to pick and ban maps as well as choosing which side you start on really makes the competitive experience much more engaging. In Premier, your rank is just a number now, but at least you know how much you gain and lose as well as how close you are to the next bracket, whereas in the old system, it was just a guessing game of whether or not you would rank up. Despite that, I still kind of miss the older ranks, as to me they were pretty iconic for CS. Then we have the older CSGO competitive mode in which you can pick maps and go in. These are just like the traditional CSGO competitive matchmaking that we remember. There aren't any pick and bans or anything like that. You don't pick your side. You say, these are the maps that I want to play, and those are the maps that you go in for. To me, it feels like this mode is meant to help players learn new maps in a competitive setting, or for those who miss the competitive that they're used to. You also get per map ranks now instead of an overall rank in this mode, which I find odd, and so I just rather play Premier. I usually play with at least a 3-stack, and we've been consistently placed against 4 to 6k players, which seems much more fair than the matchmaking in CSGO, which would give us gold novas while playing against LEMs or Supremes. So overall, I just like Premier more. CS2's release also introduced a new drop system called the Weekly Care Package. Like before, you get stuff once a week for getting another level. However, this time you can choose 2 things out of 4 that are shown to you, so you can still get your case and weapon. It's just different because now you get to choose your drops instead of just being handed one. And then finally, we've got skins, which are in a much better spot now. Skins look way nicer, they're higher res, they're shinier, better textures, all that jazz. Overall, skins in CS2 are an upgrade with the exception of some that are still a work in progress, but we'll get to that in a minute. That actually brings me to my next point, which is that CS2 at release just feels rushed. Valve said we get the game in summer 2023, and they missed it by a few days. I think it was 4 days or something like that, which isn't the end of the world, but it shows that CS2 isn't where it needs to be yet, and it's still a work in progress. One of the first things that I noticed when I logged into CS2 for the first time is that we don't have any of the War Games modes. I'm sure that some of these modes were underplayed, but I personally enjoyed jumping into these for a quick match or 2 of arms race or retakes to warm up my aim before going into comp, or just to chill after some comp. We don't have any of the War Games modes currently at launch, and that includes the maps that were associated with them. The thing is, it's not just the War Games maps. Wingman and even competitive are still missing maps. We don't have Chalice or Boyard for Wingman, just to name a few, and even more so, where is Cash? I get that they're probably just working on improving these maps for CS2, but it's a real shame that the game is launching with less stuff than CSGO had. I know that playing competitive in Counter-Strike is the main draw of the game, but it was still a ton of fun to be able to jump into these more casual modes and have a good time without all of the sweatiness that you find in comp. And now we can't do that because Counter-Strike Global Offensive is no more. And then going back to skins for a moment, some of them still aren't even fixed, and some gloves are in the same boat, like my dear precious amphibs, which got got brutally murdered with the release of CS2. I have faith that these will be ironed out though, and it's more important that Valve gets a working game out and then fix the skins and extra stuff. Although the game isn't quite where it needs to be yet, Valve do seem to be working double time to make sure that it gets there. They've been cranking out updates for the game since launch, and this makes me hopeful that it won't be long until CS2 gets to the level that CSGO was at in terms of polish. So overall, while I'm really enjoying Counter-Strike 2, I understand that it still needs more work. So to answer the question, is this a worthy successor to CSGO? I gotta say that in the current state that it's in, I don't think it is. The game is pretty, and for the most part it feels good, but it still seems rushed, and with the lack of content and the fact that Valve are still working on the core fundamentals like shooting and smokes, it just feels like it needs a little more time in the oven before it reaches the heights of CSGO. I'm positive that Valve will update the game and ensure that it reaches the level of polish that we expect, but as of right now, things like the lack of modes and maps detract from the experience when compared directly to CSGO. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that CS2 is bad by any means. I just think that, and maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but I feel that the expectation for CS2 was that because it would replace CSGO, that maybe we would get something on release with the same amount of content and polish for the core framework that we all know and love, the stuff that makes Counter-Strike Counter-Strike. Instead, CS2 releases and it feels like they really just opened up the beta for everyone. I'm sure that in a few months, this will be a worthy successor to CSGO, but for now, we just have to wait for Valve to keep updating the game. With that being said, I want to hear what you guys think about the game so far, so leave a comment down below if you're enjoying it, or if you're having some issues with it. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.